Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade, focused on student support and digital experience. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology who will be bringing you their perspectives on how digital transformation is reshaping the way we recruit, engage, and graduate learners. You'll hear firsthand accounts of how institutional leaders are developing their strategy, as well as get deeper on the stories of how these EdTech tools are being built to foster better student outcomes. With that, let's get to today's episode.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, episode number 319, with Ashish Fernando, founder and CEO at EDMO. He's also the host of the EDU Unlocked podcast. We did a little podcast swap, so I'm going to be on an episode of his show, and he came on for mine. I just love kind of his perspective on this work, leveraging AI to kind of increase efficiency and effectiveness in the kind of admissions enrollment world, but we keeping humans in the loop. He kind of explains that more, and we just have this very kind of philosophical conversation about all of this, but really keeping it tied in practically and tactically to the realities of hired professionals every day and students and everything. I just really enjoyed this conversation, enjoy his perspective again, and just his willingness to really engage with these conversations here and on his own podcast. Definitely go connect with him. He's a good follow. I really appreciate him and all he shared for this episode, and appreciate you listening to episode number 319 with Ashish Fernando. I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. We're doing a little podcast swap here with EDU Unlocked, so folks can look forward to having that companion piece to this episode here. But before we get too far to what I'm sure will be just a very awesome conversation between two podcasters in the space, if you want to briefly introduce yourself briefly to everyone and your professional background and just a little bit about what your organization EDMO does.
Yeah, absolutely. When Dustin and I got in touch, the main reason we got in touch was because we both did higher ed podcasts. Dustin, thank you for inviting me to yours. In this case, I'll first start there. I started doing podcasts with the presidents, CIOs, VPs at institutions, just understanding what their next frontier is at the institution, and soon just got completely engrossed in that. So part of my life is doing podcasts, but most of my day or rest of my day I spend building EDMO. And EDMO is a manifestation of what I saw as broken admissions and enrollment processes. So EDMO comes in and fixes it using AI, where AI is really meaningful in terms of reading documents, making decisions on what courses need to transfer credit, communicating with students, communicating with staff. So all the usual mundane day-to-day that takes up a lot of admission staff time and therefore takes away their time that they can use to interface with students. That's what EDMO's been solving, and been doing that for about 8 years now, just focused on higher education. Come with a background in tech, some machine learning, AI, worked with some large enterprises in India, came to the States to do my MBA, and decided to just club those together, tech and my passion for higher ed. My grandfather started schools in India, so it's kind of part of the DNA. And so, yeah, here we are.
Always a treat to have a fellow podcaster. And before we get too far, you kind of started and mentioned your journey as a podcaster here with EDU Unlocked. And I'm just curious, like, what that experience has meant to you, because it is that idea of, I'm sure it is manifesting a lot of those things in terms of your values, your just perspective on the space. But I know for me, over the several years doing it, I'm just always learning new stuff and just networking and meeting great people and everything. Just talk more about that, what that experience has meant to you, and anything that you've learned, maybe like the most recent thing, I guess, that comes to mind of just an epiphany that you had from our recent conversation.
I'll tell you the intention I started with, and then now what it's turned out to be. So the intention was, I was struggling I knew before AI was even cool. This was like 2015 is when I started working AI in higher ed. When we all thought, no, AI, oh no, it's not here to do anything much other than create noise. And I started this journey of saying, no, I think it's really going to help solve some of the issues I faced when I was applying to school here in the US. And so my podcast started as a way of understanding what leaders actually think the gaps are and what are the gaps that they think humans are really good at fixing, or, hey, we need a machine that can look at 10,000 different data points in real time and help make decisions in real time that save money for the institution, time for the institution, and more importantly, save money for the student. So, like, the transfer credit was actually a use case that totally came out of my podcast. And I was talking to one of my friends, mentors, and advisors who started and built Southern New Hampshire to where it is, Paul LeBlanc, President Emeritus at Southern New Hampshire. He used to always talk about this: 42% students in America don't get credit for the transfer. You've already done the work. You deserve credit for it. You not just get credit for it, you spend extra time redoing it, plus you pay for it. I mean, think about that. And I'm like, wow, great use case for me to come in and say, it's transfer credit, right? I should be able to look at the catalog, the curriculum of a school using a machine and say, here's a transcript that came in, what courses are on it, do the mapping and say, this deserves a transfer credit. And it's become one of our best AI use cases in the market, actually, because schools would be usually the time they take to review a transcript is like 3 to 4 weeks. We do it in minutes now. Yeah, it's been a good journey through podcasts, just learning, listening from presidents and CIOs and saying, let me apply AI to that and see what happens.
Yeah, because it could challenge assumptions, affirm just hypotheses you have. And so it can kind of really go across the spectrum in terms of having these fairly in-depth conversations with a variety of people. It's highly manual. It is highly subjective. It's just like up to a faculty member to be like, I don't know, let me just try to evaluate this and whatever. So it takes a lot of time. There's not like a good standardization to it. And then I think the incentives are just very warped, where there is this idea of kind of a short-sighted approach of, no, we want you to pay for that course here. No, we think it's whatever institution it is, sometimes it's, oh, they can never teach it like we do or whatever. You've got to take it here. That short-sightedness leaves a really bad taste in students' mouth and very visceral and tangible to them of time and money and everything. I think it's an idea of there can be a future, I think, where you can have a little bit more of a longer term view, that idea of we'd rather have that student come here, stay here, and finish their degree here, and hopefully be a very satisfied and happy alumni versus being like, we're going to actually get 3 credits more of tuition out of them because they have to take that course again here or something. Come on, man. Like, you got to have a little longer term view. And again, the idea that we can enable that future, I'm very hopeful for through folks like yourself. I know there's other folks toying with this, of leveraging AI to make that process be more effective and efficient, but I think keep all the stakeholders happy.
You said it. You touched upon it. Not a lot of people realize this, right? Yeah, hey, do I say, take this course again? Yeah, I'll get some extra, maybe enrollment revenue or something out of it. Some schools will think of it that way. Yeah, it's like enrollment targets. But then in that process, there's also a higher chance of that student not completing. But the most interesting dynamic that I've seen coming out of the last decade or so is the big onlines. They recruit and enroll so many students, right? Some of them are like ridiculous, like 170,000 students enrolling a year at some of these larger ones, like Western Governors, Southern New Hampshire. But when you look at enrollment yield and things like that, these are doing really well. And why? Because they're deploying AI fast. They recognize that students need speed. We're living in the world of one-click buy on Amazon and the stuff shows up in 10 minutes at your doorstep. And they can deploy capital there, right? They've got the means to do it, and they fix that. But the second half, they struggle with. And I feel that's where like the human side is so important, where traditional institutions do so well. Once you enroll, from that enrollment to graduation, the experience is so much more richer at a traditional school that they'll probably struggle, even a liberal arts school or smaller institutions. Struggle with, how do I enroll the right student? Processes are archaic, people are sitting and transfer credits are missing and all of that. But once that student enrolls, at that point, if you ask the student, hey, did you like your experience at that big online getting admitted there, or did you like it at this small institution? They're going to say big online. But then you wait for them to graduate. Let's say they graduated from both, and you say, which experience did you like? They're going to say traditional institution, right? Because now it's, with all that recency bias, it's like onlines are struggling with how do you deliver the value, the experience in that learning phase, so I'm always trying to figure out, how do you club the two? How do you get the efficiency and the speed of a big online on the admissions front with the humanized, high EQ, high emotional teaching experience at a traditional institution? There's been some interesting questions around that.
That idea of there is value in the sort of like hyper efficient transactional pieces just across the entire student experience. That's the idea of if you're going to in that sweet spot of an institution, like it's a big institution, it's got lots of students, lots of opportunities for you to get out of your comfort zone, build your kind of social network and everything, and just learn, grow, get leadership opportunity, like all this great kind of experiential learning, anything like that. It has all those sort of opportunities and everything, but it's like you want all that to be enabled as efficiently as possible through maybe a variety of platforms and a tech stack of institutions. I'm just curious because, yeah, you've got clearly just a great perspective across kind of the spectrum here on like how AI is helping to kind of keep moving that forward of augmenting higher ed tech stacks that support creating kind of good outcomes for students and everything. And I know if you want to ground it more in kind of the enrollment management, feel free to go that direction. But just anything that's coming to mind of like how AI is being this sort of accelerant to continue helping higher ed tech stacks try to reach that sort of like really harmonious balance between hyper efficient transactions, but then kind of the deeply kind of human experiential learning opportunities for students.
One of the stats from my podcasts is usually one of the questions I ask. This is when you're talking to a president or CIO, right? What do you think the next 5 years is going to completely change how you operate the institution? 9 out of 10 will say AI, right? And then the follow-up question is, how do you think it's going to do that? And there's usually no answer to that question, right? So now we're in that, especially in higher ed. I think a lot of other industries have gone through the hype cycle of AI and they've started deploying AI. Like when you see retail, when you see automobile, insurance, you see a lot of AI there. Higher ed is still, it has to come to that stable point. The way I kind of look at AI is I feel everything that people say about it, the ones who are pro AI will say, yeah, it's going to make things faster, cheaper, better. The ones who are against AI will say it'll take away our jobs and things like that. I feel like the one thing people are afraid of, especially in higher ed now, is that one of the important tenets of deploying AI is that the first thing AI does is it exposes flaws. And I'll give you an example. Of course, I won't name the institution, but large institution enrolling hundreds of thousands of students a year. We went in and did a pilot. And they have, I think, like 1.4 million articulation rules, right? When a student comes in and there's an articulation, and most of your listeners will understand what that is. And they said, man, we have these millions of articulation rules, and how is your AI going to even compete with all of that? And I'm like, yeah, you want to try it? Let's try it. So we go without even looking at the rules. The AI does such a good job, like 70% accurate. Then we throw all of those rules into it. And eventually, very quickly, we got to 98, 99%. But the first step that happened is this. The minute we threw articulation rules into the AI engine, it said, hey, there's a bunch of wrong rules in there. There's this rule conflicts with this rule, and this rule is outdated. And so it starts exposing all these flaws that exist in the current way articulation is done. And I see the exact same thing happen everywhere else, right? Is like when we use AI for communicating with students and we look at transcripts of what the humans did and we feed it to the AIs. Why did one human say that and the other human say the exact opposite thing? What am I supposed to say now? And I feel once we surpass that stage and we get into this mode of, oh my God, it really helps in places where the activities are complex, take time, and don't add any human-to-human high-touch value like admissions. It's soon going to happen. Just like what happened with travel. Today, you don't talk to a travel agent. You find it to be way more efficient in saving and cost saving to book on Expedia or wherever. Banking, you feel the same, not talking to a teller anymore. You do it on your app, on the phone. Admissions is I put it in that same category of, yeah, it's one of those things where you don't really have to talk to someone. You can make it way more efficient, faster. And then hopefully, I'll tell you what my end goal is, Dustin. Hopefully, we talk about rising enrollment costs and rising tuition costs. This is my contribution to hopefully help reduce that by at least 10%. Because on one side, yes, do I not think about like jobs and, oh my God, this AI is going to replace somebody's job? 100%, 200%. I think about it every day, every night. But above that, we as educators in higher ed and podcasters and all of us, what we got to think about is how do we make that student successful? What's the student is our final customer. How do I reduce the cost for that student, make it affordable for every student to have education as more of a right than a privilege at a cost that they can afford? And that's what I'm going after, right? Part of that does become reduce costs. How do you reduce cost? Look at where the biggest cost is, and it's usually on admissions offices and faculties that are overstaffed because we got to do what's right for the student. But hey, with AI, we can do a better job, save some money on both sides, and that's what I'm going after, honestly. Yeah, a lot of people push back on that with me. Like whenever you say you're the AI guy, you get pushbacks. But yeah, I've been dealing with that quite a bit.
Let's take a quick pause to talk about something big happening this summer, the Engage Summit 2026. The next era of higher ed isn't about adding more tools. It's about building the agentic campus, where AI works alongside your teams to recruit smarter, support students faster, and scale impact without burning people out. From real-world examples of agentic systems in action to hands-on sessions that show how AI can coordinate enrollment, marketing, advising, and operations, Engage Summit is where institutions move from experimentation to execution. If you're ready to design a campus where AI doesn't just assist, but instead acts, learns, and drives outcomes, then you'll want to be in Charlotte June 15th through the 17th. But it gets even better. As an Enrollify listener, you can grab your ticket for half off. Just head to engage.element451.com and use code Dustin50 to apply the 50% off discount. That's DUSTIN50. All right, let's get back to the conversation. Yeah, I appreciate you committing to fighting the good fight of, I think like the idea of it is what it is, but being like, you're doing it for like the right reasons or whatever. I guess that's how it's hitting for me is like that acknowledgement of, it's going to maybe replace, and not even necessarily that idea of, it's going to do my entire job for me. It's going to replace like a substantial lot of tasks and different things that are just like really resource intensive or whatever else. And it made me think of a metaphor of this idea that people would like, I'm sure like at the advent of the car, kind of begrudging of that idea of something that's, this is going to be more efficient and effective having cars instead of like horse-drawn carriages. And it's, are you going to replace all the like horses or something? But it's like a better way to get there. And we can, I don't know, it just made me think of that idea of the way things were, like we were getting here with a super resource intensive approach and I think still leaving a lot to be desired. And it's okay, now we have this other approach here that I think is going to get us likely further, more efficiently. And it's just transitions are hard, change management is hard. And I think that has to be acknowledged and done in a thoughtful way. But it is just like we're reaching this sort of threshold and this sort of passing the Rubicon of, okay, what we were doing was laborious and really wasn't hitting the mark in terms of retention numbers or certainly for an individual institution, how much they would have to do to just try to like stay stable in terms of recruiting students or whatever. And so I think it's just an interesting getting into this sort of mode of like an existential level of sort of understanding kind of the implications of a lot of these things. Like how are we going to build our strategy in light of that? And how are we going to deploy limited resources or different things or maybe reallocate because it is that's kind of where the puck is going. We need to follow that.
Think about when you and I went to college and when the generations before us went to college. How we define experience was very different than how our previous generation did. And the way this generation defines experience and how they want to see that experience is, again, very different. So, there are times when, with some schools, we've been deploying bots, AI intelligent bots for years now. And it will sometimes, some schools will be like, no, we got to give the student the option to talk to a human directly, right? Without even going through the bot and like listening to a bunch of things. Great. Let's give both these options at the beginning of that experience. Okay, do you want to just talk to a human? Do you want to talk to a bot? What do you think the stats are? It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. It's about 78% students hit bot. So you got to think of, for me, I still want to talk to a human. If I call United or I call I have an issue with a car rental or something, I want to talk to a human. But most of today's generation that's going to college wants to talk to a bot instead and be like, I know how this bot thinks. I'm just going to ask the right thing, find what I need, get going.
That just made me think of, as of the recording of this earlier this week, I was in Phoenix and was finally able to try Waymo. I did it and was like, oh, this is really cool. And then as I was just going about for this conference, having to go kind of back and forth a couple of times, I was like, it was kind of my preference. Like I checked that first to see if how quick it was picking me up and the price, but it was like that idea of, oh man, I can go in here, just kind of have a little quiet time. I can control the temperature and all that. It's that idea of even just like for me, having an immediate kind of change of my perspective, having a really high quality experience. Like it's again, like that's a very clear anecdote and experience or example of
it is, yeah.
One, kind of generational differences, but two, once more people have a really positive experience, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is incredible. Like we could do so much with it. So and I think again, it's still a sort of like murky middle of a lot of skepticism on one side and like other people who are like super bullish on it. And it's like, yeah, we got to keep doing it. We got to keep using it. We got to keep making it better. And yeah, in that vein, like I was already philosophically like, yeah, driverless cars, it's pretty cool.
Right.
Hopefully be eventually like really safe and efficient, but it like sealed the deal, like doing it and having a good experience with it. But that just makes me think, I think is similarly like as folks like yourself are continuing to partner up with institutions and keep building out these sort of experiences and being able to really show great kind of test cases, case studies, and those sort of things. I guess it's like the idea of, I'm sure for you, like you're working with a lot of institutions with a lot of different priorities and a lot of different values, or just the ways that they, again, like want to approach this, where they might say, you got to have a way for people to like option into speaking with a human. What do you feel like it makes this like a productive strategy of using AI to plug in and augment versus saying, okay, whatever you have before, we've got to completely replace it? Because it is that idea of, hey, whatever articulation agreements you have, let's plug it in and it'll help to do that, versus it being like, we got to restart all of that. We can't use it anymore. Like whatever form or shape that takes, that experience of trying to bring people into the fold with what you're like working on and your sort of point of view, the idea of using AI to help augment your existing systems versus the need to just like, replace them altogether.
Yeah, no, it's actually a very important question, Dustin. And doing all the things I do with AI, the one thing I'll say is never trust an AI 100%. Never. Whoa, why are you saying that? For now. I don't know how things will be 5 years from now, right? But for now, it's the notion of you can buy a car that's completely built by a machine, painted by a machine, the engine's put in place and everything's done by a machine. But there's still value to a human looking at it and signing off on it. And then you see like people pay an extra 200 grand if it says, personally inspected by this human, and here's a signature, right? Here's your Mercedes, and it's the same with everything we're doing with AI also. I'm a big believer of what we call the human in the loop, right? So you want to have a human in the loop, and you want to build and design AI architectures that can look for two things. It can look for accuracy and it can look for confidence, right? In that accuracy. So be like, hey, I'm 90% accurate, but I'm also very confident that my accuracy number is good. Those are the two metrics that every piece of AI we build works on. If you're 100% accurate and you're extremely confident that this is not a false positive, then it's a good AI decision. But based on all the different metrics, parameters we've built in, if you're either not fully accurate or you're not fully confident about whatever you've done, then it has to stop by a human. And it's very important. And that's how we build everything. None of our systems today, I mean, there are some of our tools that are 100% accurate. Like when we look at a transcript and we read all the information on it, hardly ever fails. But still, we have a human ready in case a document needs to go to them for review. And that's how I actually encourage everybody to think about it. So when you deploy AI, now you need those humans who we think we're replacing. We actually need them for two important things. One is to actually build all of this AI. You need people who will now reskill themselves to build this AI. And then you need a separate set of people to do the human in the loop, which is I'm going to keep this AI real, right? I'm going to keep its output real. I've hardly seen forget about higher ed institutions, even for other places where we built a lot of AI. Back in the day, I used to build like some of these, get an insurance quote in 5 minutes. I designed some of that AI, right? Turnitin's proctoring solution that does AI proctoring, they actually acquired my previous business, and it's now what Turnitin's AI proctoring runs on, almost all of it. Of course, they've made changes to it. But through all those experiences, the one thing I've learned is it's time to reskill. Just like when production got automated by the production line, Just when travel and things like that got automated by machines, now admissions will get automated. But that doesn't mean we'll live in a world where humans won't have jobs. I think the general notion is that, but we got to think about, hey, it's coming. Whether I like it or not, it's coming. So what am I doing to reskill myself to actually meet that future of humanity? A lot of people don't think of it that way. They're just stuck in the rut of this is bad. You can keep saying that, but it's going to come hit you someday, very soon.
I think it's the idea of assuring people that like this is a way to maximize the investment in both the people and the tools that you already have. And again, change management is part of it. You might need people to, again, leverage your people in different ways than what they had done prior. Maybe not a full 180 turnaround, but yeah, that idea of like people to do the QA on what's kind of being produced by AI tools, like different reports or whatever they're doing. But then even, yeah, that idea of having people on the team that can build and maintain these things, be the ones who are creating the tangible ways that this is integrating into workflows and things. And so I think it is just, I think that is the level-headed kind of approach is, okay, you've got your team, you've got your tools, let's plug in to maximize your investment in those things. And that will require, again, some change and some bumps in the road as people are settling into a little bit of a new way of working. But on the other end, it is that idea of, okay, you're an institution that is strapped for resources and trying to be as effective and efficient as possible. This is going to be part of the equation to do that. And it's not going to require you to just blow everything up, lay a bunch of people off. You're not going to be incentivized to do that, I think. It's certainly not at this juncture. It's going to be allowing you to maximize the investment in the people and tools that you have is, I guess, my takeaway or what's kind of resonating with me from what you're saying. And I think, again, it's a great sort of way to frame this to, I think, have it feel accessible and approachable for folks that may still kind of be just hesitant or kind of intimidated or whatever it might be. But I guess real quick, final two questions. Anything that you're excited or looking forward to? Certainly, again, this is a fast-moving, fast-changing kind of world on this leading edge of AI and higher ed and everything. But anything you're excited about? Because I know, like for me, like great conference season coming up with some of my favorite events of the year and things. Anything like that, or anything specifically that you're working on, or whatever you might want to tease of what's coming up for you in the near future?
There's actually quite a few amazing things we're working on in the Skunkworks team. All we're doing is tinkering with AI and higher ed. And I don't know if you're going to the ASU GSV Summit that's coming up, or you'll be there. I'll actually send you some details. So they'll roll out this advert pretty soon. We're doing a session where there's going to be about 100 computers, 100 laptops, whatever, in a room. And it's going to be a live session where higher ed folks can actually quickly build a bot about whatever. We'll say, pick your topic, just in real time. Just think about the value of AI. Pick a topic, financial aid, student enrollment, active student, doesn't matter, career services. Build the bot. It'll tell you, okay, this is what I'm going to build. And then you say, no, I don't like it. Change whatever, quick parameters, build it. And then we're going to just randomly pick somebody. And then we're going to make a phone call to that bot, okay, in real time. And we're going to have a conversation. And then we're going to look at what happened, like in the back end, in real time. It'll be like, hey, I answered these questions. I did not answer these well. I got this information about the student. I pushed it to the CRM. All of this is happening in real time to just see the value of AI, right? So where we're getting to is a point where if you're a student and you call the institution, and you're talking to an AI and you get what you need, and then you're on the website or you're in the application process and you do something and there's a chatbot and it's the same engine, it's the same AI that's now helping you. Hey, Dustin, okay, do that, do this, do that. And now you're enrolling and now you're in the classroom and then you still have the same AI that knew you since the day you applied to this college and knows everything about you and helps you. That's where I think we're all heading. And it's pretty exciting for me from that standpoint to just kind of see the efficiency it'll bring for today's generation, which looks for that because we're living in that world of one click buy. So, yeah, that's what my goal is to bring to higher ed. And in the process, definitely think about what we're doing to the current system. I've hired a few people who my AI replaced. Like, how funny is that? But that's actually real. Hey, we're replacing you. But your brain is what I need for you to help me come and build what I envision to build. And AI seems to be the answer to that. Maybe 3 years down, Dustin, we realize, oh my God, Ashish was wrong. Yeah, but then I'll get on to the next thing that we think is right. It's the mission of get it right for the student at low cost, affordable. Yeah.
Yeah, like folks who really are being like, okay, we have this tool. Let's see what we can do with it. And again, like we're at a beautiful moment now where I think you are really seeing very clear, tangible like products, but also the impacts. Like it's not where it's just like this sort of thing and everybody's just either going, it's going to change everything, the world's going to change, or like the sky is falling, like whatever else. Like, because I think that's the idea of having a session at an event like an ASU GSV where people are really getting their hands on and they can see how it works and see where it might hit bumps and stuff like that. That is a way more just powerful thing to do versus just like talking a big game about it could do this or it will do that. Trust me, because I said so. It's exciting because I think even for me, like I was thinking when you were saying that, what would I build if I was in that session? It's, what I think people have been doing with the ability to, with my like hundreds of podcast episodes, basically make a like version like of my brain from all the episodes I've done or whatever that I can ask the podcast questions or something like that idea of, how many times have we talked about this? Or what's my perspective on that from, or I don't know, like it'd be that idea of there's just so much knowledge or resources and even kind of what you're saying from the Institute's website or whatever else and to plug that in and you can maybe even wall it off of, okay, this is going to be really tailored to a specific use case. But I think it was really compelling what you're saying of that continuity, I think is also a very powerful kind of use case. And then my final 2 cents, I guess, final thoughts of what you're saying too, is that idea of, I think getting someone to like just submit their application. It's like, you would want that to hopefully be a pretty quick process. And that is then where like a human can intervene in terms of evaluating the application, talking with the student to hopefully get them to feel really well prepared and excited to actually then enroll. And then the idea of registering, checking off all the boxes, setting yourself up, whatever, hopefully that can be a very efficient process. But then, like meeting your fellow students and interacting with your faculty member. There are just natural points of like the human in the loop in a higher ed experience, the student life cycle, where it really makes sense and it's not going to feel like, again, AI is totally blowing up everything that we've ever known about what college is or should be or what students value or whatever. So I'm clearly all jazzed up. It was a great conversation here, and you've already kind of ended it perfectly, I think, with your sort of final thoughts and things there. But yeah, I think this is just a great topic in terms of getting into sort of the weighty kind of higher kind of existential kind of concepts and values and guiding philosophies around AI, but then also just what you're hearing and seeing and working on every day that's like at the ground level and tangibly impacting students and helping faculty and staff do their jobs better. But I will still give you the opportunity. If you've got a final word, parting message for folks as we're wrapping up this episode, the floor is yours.
The summary of all of this is whatever makes the experience better. In certain cases, the answer is AI. In certain cases, the answer is human. A big part of why I went to Bentley wasn't the fact that I got a full scholarship. I'd gotten an admit from Yale and UBC Sauder in Canada and some of these really good schools. But a big reason for why I went to Bentley was the human experience. The staff there were so communicative, so vocal. I was on an interview for an MBA program and they said, Ashish, you're actually better off at this other program. And here's why. And it actually costed less. And I'm like, wow, man, these people really care. So it's that combination. In the end, what we're trying to do together is create that student experience. And my part is to just say, hey, I think I know tech better than some people, and I'll build the tech that'll also help give that better experience. The human side should also be there where it's needed. And that's what I think we should all be aiming for. And soon the struggles of enrollments going down and the enrollment cliff and higher ed budget cuts, Department of Ed, and all these things will soon start coming down. That's the hope. And we got to have that hope because higher ed is important. Education is important. College, university, it's important. I'm not a believer of you don't need a college degree anymore, right? You do need it, but I think you need it in a slightly different format than how it's looked at today. I think that's the final wrap from my side.
Yeah, that idea of temperature will go down eventually, and the way that these institutions will rebound to then reach greater heights for their own sake and for their students is integrating the best tools that are out there at the time that are continuing to be built day after day right now. I do just appreciate you, all that you do, and for hanging out and sharing all that you did for this episode of Ways to Connect with You and EDMO in the episode description. But it's always great talking to you. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Geek podcast. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow.
So be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.